They call it the mighty fine batch, but let's see how good this Booker's really is. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch, and thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So today we are diving into one of the newer releases of Booker's Bourbon. This is not actually the most recent release, but I've still seen this on shelves. It is the third release of the year, the Mighty Fine Batch. I've seen some positive reviews of this one and was fortunate enough to get this as a birthday gift actually, so really excited to dive into it. In terms of the story with Booker's, if you're not familiar, it is a product of Jim Beam Distillery, is one of their more elevated products, sort of limited, not super allocated. You see it in a good number of places, but more premium. They charge usually around 90 to 100 bucks now for it. Used to be cheaper than that for sure, but with the market as a premium option, it makes sense that it continues to kind of rise as most prices do. The question is this batch worth it? Because often with Booker's, it's kind of hit or miss in terms of whether or not people really love a batch or find it a little disappointing. Again, though, I've heard some good things about this one, so excited to jump in. As is the case with every Booker's, it's a beautiful presentation with the box, and in the box, it comes with a little card that kind of tells you what you're sipping on, so if you want to keep it in there, you still know exactly what you're looking at. So in terms of the details of this particular batch, again, it's the third release of 2023, called the Mighty Fine Batch. It's 126.6 proof. It's 7 years, 1 month old, and 10 days. So those are all pretty typical stats for Booker's, mid 120s of proof, around 7 years old. This particular batch, it has a little story here to tell on the card, but just to summarize, Fred No is the current master distiller. His father was Booker No, and he used to basically use the stamp of approval. Anytime he really liked a batch, he would say, "This is a mighty fine batch." So paying homage to his father with this particular batch and what he liked to call great whiskey. So that hopefully hypes it up and shows us that it's supposed to be a quality product. But of course the proof is in the pudding, and we'll figure out just how much we like it by diving into the nose, palate, and finish. Just before we do that, I do want to say, if you're enjoying all the content coming out of the channel, we are trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so would appreciate you helping us get to the goal if you're not subscribed already, and looking forward to a full journey through 2024 once you become part of the Bourbon Hutch community. All right, let's dive in on the nose and see how good this whiskey is. Nice. It's a good start on the nose. Some ethanol, but I've let this open up for about 10 minutes or so, and it's doing pretty well. It's got like a vanilla, dark, rich cherry or black cherry note, which is not typical for me on Booker's. A little bit of that cinnamon spice. Typically I'd get like a vanilla, peanut, cinnamon core to all Booker's, but this one adds in more of a like black cherry and honey, which is nice, and a little touch of oak as well. Pretty solid start on the nose. Let's go into the palate where we'll get a lot more information. Cheers. Nice big Kentucky hug. It's oaky, spicy. Some of the first things that come to mind there. A lot of barrel spice and cinnamon and oak. It tends toward a little overwhelming, especially the first sip on the palate. Kind of blew out the middle of my palate there, so if I had a complaint, that might be it. But this one's really shining on the back end of the palate and the finish. So the beginning is that vanilla brown sugar. Middle is like lots of spice and almost overwhelming, but then it fades, and I'm still getting this oaky, black cherry, almost plum-like, some deep, dark, pitted fruits. Brown sugar's there, and then the spice is lingering as well. Lots of vanilla on the finish as well too, and even a touch of that honey. So the real sweet bouquet of flavors, I think, comes through more on the finish, and you kind of got to get through the spice to get to that experience. Let's go in on a second sip now, though, that we have it on our palate and it's coated the palate. Should be able to pick out some more flavors and nuances. Cheers. Smells pretty good. Nice. So still getting that ethanol kick a little bit. To be expected. Booker's can run a little hot, and you kind of expect that, but for me, this one again shines on the back end with this rich oak and black cherry. It's got this spiciness, that cinnamon forward, really nice. Almost a touch of something savory on that sip. So maybe a little bit of like a black pepper and touch of that peanut. It's not much of it, but just a hint of it. And a little savory note. Plenty of oak on this one. This is pretty quality stuff. I mean, it is powerful and full of flavor, and the way it lingers, and it lingers for quite a long time, but the way it lingers is really, really nice. Let's go in for our third sip. We'll go through our full thoughts on the whole whiskey and just kind of wrap up this experience. Cheers. Yeah, continues to give me a consistent experience. It's still warm and aggressive, but the flavors are there with the black cherry, honey, vanilla, lots of that oak. Really oaky experience here, especially on the back end, which is good. This sip, I got maybe a touch of like an apple fruitiness coming through, something just a little bit brighter, which was a good kind of balancing act there. Although it's still aggressive and spicy, and what does linger, I mean, it continues to kind of be aggressive all down my throat and in my palate. So it's typical Booker's, in your face. Only being 7 years old can lend towards some of that aggressiveness feeling a little overwhelming. But I think this batch in particular doesn't lean into the like peanut, vanilla, like cinnamon. It leans more into a cinnamon, black cherry, vanilla, honey, oak, which is really nice. As crazy as it may seem, this actually makes me think of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C923. Now, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C923 is almost double the age, more rounded, more oak, and definitely less aggressive, even though it's more proof. But this one has some of those elements with the oak and the like rich plum darkness to it. Even Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A123 had some of that with this oaky plum dark cherry kind of note. So this is a surprisingly good kind of array of flavors, and I'm really digging it. I'm enjoying it. I do think it's still like very aggressive because of some of the younger tendencies in this one, but it's full of flavor, and if you can get past the aggressiveness, and if you're willing to kind of let that sit on your palate, the finish, the back end of the palate and the finish are really, really good on this batch. All right, well, color me impressed. A very solid batch of Booker's. I don't know if it's better than the first batch of the year, Charlie's batch, which is the other batch I have from this year that I really, really enjoy. I'll have to taste them side by side to figure that out, but it's definitely one that for that $90 to $100 that you're typically going to see this, I don't have qualms about recommending it. I think it's actually quite good. Now, when you think about other whiskeys, like say that Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A123 or C923, which if you see them at retail are $70, they're significantly more worth it. But for what you're getting with the presentation and in terms of the potential batches you could grab, I think this is a very solid one from Booker's. All right, everybody. I think that's going to wrap it up with this review here. Nice, short, and sweet, hopefully. Let me know in the comments below, have you been able to taste this third batch of the year, the Mighty Fine batch from Booker's, and what did you think? I'm specifically interested to hear what you guys think is the best batch of the year and which one you're enjoying the most. While you're at it, hit that like button on the video, helps it get out to more people. And until I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.